The Garmin InReach is the most popular satellite communicator and SOS device out there, but Zoleo has been eroding InReach's market share by making a clean and easy to use device that a lot of people have enjoyed as an InReach alternative. But Garmin's release of the new InReach Messenger device and the corresponding app is a direct shot at everything that Zoleo did better than the InReach. It's simpler, cleaner, and has a bunch of extra features, but let's see if the InReach Messenger is enough to bury the Zoleo or if it fails at beating the Zoleo at its own game. Let's start off with price because there's a big difference between these two devices. The InReach Messenger costs a whopping $300 US, which is cheaper than the InReach Mini 2, which costs $400, but is still 50% more than the Zoleo, which only costs $200. For both of these devices, you need to pay a monthly subscription in order to use them. I did a poll and most people out there are on the cheapest plan that you can get, and with the cheapest plan, the InReach is going to be less expensive no matter which way you go, whether you're on the annual plan or month to month. For the middle plans, the Zoleo is going to be cheaper unless you pay annually, in which case the InReach is going to be cheaper. Based on my poll, a lot of people, they'll activate their subscription for only a few months of the year while they're in the backpacking season, and then they'll let it lay dormant during the winter seasons. And if you're going to be doing that, the Zoleo might be the best way to go. For the most expensive plans where you get unlimited messaging, it's pretty much a wash between these two devices. If you're only going to be using your device for 1 or maybe 2 months of the year, then the Garmin's going to be the way to go because Zoleo requires a minimum 3-month activation and they have an activation charge anytime you need to reactivate. The InReach Messenger weighs less and is quite a bit smaller and sleeker than the Zoleo. The InReach only weighs 114 grams, whereas the Zoleo weighs 150 grams. And that size difference is surprising because the InReach Messenger has a bigger battery at 1800 milliamp hours, whereas the Zoleo's battery size is 1430 milliamp hours. And that actually translates into real world use. I get about 6 to 7 days of battery life with the Zoleo, but with the InReach Messenger, it's about 12 plus days. The InReach Messenger has a USB-C charging port, which is awesome. Almost all of my devices now are USB-C, whereas the Zoleo is still stuck with micro USB. And the use of USB-C also allows the InReach Messenger to charge quite a bit faster than the Zoleo, and it creates a cool feature where you can do reverse charging with the device. So if your phone is out of batteries or is on very low battery and you're in an emergency, you can plug your phone into the Garmin, turn on reverse charging, and then charge your phone from the battery of the InReach Messenger. You can only use that feature if the InReach Messenger has above 25% battery, and it'll last about 20 minutes before shutting off. You can check weather with both of these devices as well, but they use different weather platforms. The Zoleo uses Eris weather, whereas the InReach Messenger uses dark sky. When doing weather checks simultaneously, I haven't really noticed that big of a difference as far as the forecast goes. There's a website you can check how accurate the different forecast services are, and there's really not a huge difference, but if there is a difference, it depends on your location. For example, dark sky performs slightly better in New York based on 2021 forecast accuracy, but Eris weather did better at forecasting weather in Denver. Something else that might be an issue as far as weather goes for some of you out there is that the Zoleo only shows weather in Fahrenheit. I talked to Zoleo about this and there's no way around it, but with the InReach Messenger you can choose either to show Fahrenheit or Celsius. A feature that the InReach Messenger has that the Zoleo doesn't is that it has a screen on it. Even though the screen on the InReach Messenger is tiny, you can check messages with it, you can send messages, it's a little bit tedious but you can still do it. You can also check weather, and then you can use the trackback feature. Trackback allows you to follow a breadcrumb trail back along the path that you came, which could be very useful if you get lost. With the Zoleo device with no screen, all you can do is use the check-in button as well as the SOS button. And we'll get into a little bit later why having a screen is such a big deal. Another feature that the InReach Messenger has, because it's made by Garmin, is that you can sync it to a Garmin watch really easily and get a whole bunch of features with that. I can leave my InReach and my phone in my pockets and just use my watch in order to see messages or even trigger an SOS. I can also use the watch to send preset messages, which is super useful if I'm checking in every hour or two. For satellite coverage, both devices are on the Iridium network, which has really good worldwide coverage. And I've used both these devices in a whole bunch of different conditions, treed areas, canyons, inside of my tent, and I've been super impressed with the ability for both of them to be able to send and receive messages quickly. The ability to connect to satellites and send and receive messages quickly is gonna really depend on the conditions that you're out in, but I really wouldn't give an edge to either of these devices in that regard. Both devices can connect to satellites for navigation as well. With the Zoleo, you can connect to the GPS or GLONASS satellite networks, whereas with the InReach Messenger, you can connect to GPS, Galileo, QZSS, and Beidou. GLONASS is the satellite constellation ran by Russia, and I wonder if current events are the reason why Garmin did not include that satellite constellation as part of the ones that the Garmin InReach Messenger connects to. With both of these devices, you can trigger an SOS using a button on the device, or you can trigger an SOS through the app. Once you trigger the SOS, you're going to be routed to the IERCC, which is an organization that's going to route you to the best search and rescue or emergency responders for the area that you're in. It's interesting to note that both Zoleo and Garmin use the IERCC service, but that Garmin actually owns that organization. Once you're connected with the IERCC and emergency responders, you're going to be able to use the app for both devices in order to have two-way communication with those people. And that brings us to messaging. And there's a lot of things to get into with messaging, and for a lot of people out there, the two-way communication and messaging features that these devices have are going to be what you're using the most. A feature that might be super important for some people out there is that with the Zoleo, you get a dedicated number with the device, so you will always be messaging people and then having them message you from the same number. Whereas with the InReach Messenger, that number will change, but something to note is that once you send a message from the InReach Messenger to somebody, the number for that thread is going to be consistent. So once you initiate that conversation, they can message you back at that number, and it's always going to be the same one. With both devices, you can message to phone numbers or emails, or you can use the apps in order to message back and forth with friends or family. A really cool feature with the InReach Messenger is that you get 3 presets that you get unlimited messaging for. So that's not going to go against the messages that you have as part of your monthly plan, and that can be super useful when you're out on trail. The 3 presets that I use are starting the day, random check-in, and then finishing the day. And with those 3, I almost never have to use the messages from my monthly subscription. With the Zoleo, you also get unlimited check-ins, but you only get 1 preset message with that. You don't have the 3 like you do with the InReach, which is a little bit less versatile. And what's really nice is that Zoleo took away the monthly charge. It used to cost $6 a month for unlimited check-ins, but that's now bundled into their plans. Both devices will use Wi-Fi, cellular, or satellite, depending on what is available in order to send and receive information. That used to be a feature that only the Zoleo had, so it's nice to see that that is now on the InReach Messenger. With the release of the InReach Messenger, Garmin also released the Messenger app, which is a huge improvement over the Explorer app that Garmin used to use for messaging. It's pretty much dedicated to messaging now, is a little bit cleaner, simpler, and functions a little bit better as well. Another feature that you get with the InReach Messenger is group messaging. So if everyone is using the InReach Messenger app, then you can have multiple people as part of a conversation, which is going to be really useful for me and my friends when we're out on backcountry ski trips, because a lot of the time we'll have multiple groups out in different parts of the backcountry, and being able to have one message thread for all of us in order to communicate is going to be really useful. Even with the improvements to the InReach app, the Zoleo still has a much better app. It's just a lot cleaner and a lot more intuitive to use. For example, you can see when messages were last checked, as well as manually trigger a message check right from the messages screen. With Garmin, you need to go to the settings page in order to do that, which is a lot less intuitive. I also like that SOS has its own dedicated tab on the Zoleo, making it so that there's no confusion as to where you need to go in case of emergency in order to trigger an SOS. The ability to use the InReach Messenger as a standalone device due to the screen that it has is a huge deal. If you want to communicate with emergency responders with your Zoleo, you have to be connecting it to your phone, whereas with the InReach Messenger, it's tedious, but you can see messages from emergency responders as well as reply directly through the device. I've had conversations with search and rescue who have told me that two-way communication is essential for quick and efficient rescue and can be the difference between life and death when you're out there. Losing that two-way communication option with the Zoleo if my phone runs out of batteries or breaks is a deal breaker for me. If it's not a deal breaker for you, then the choice between the InReach Messenger and the Zoleo is pretty close. I think Garmin made up a lot of ground that the Zoleo had over it, but the Zoleo still has a way better messaging and app experience. If messaging and the app experience is a priority for you, then the Zoleo may be the way to go. But if you want a screen, 3 presets, and less expensive base plans, then you might be wanting to go with the InReach Messenger. If you're interested in a Garmin watch, then go check out this video where I compare Garmin's 2 top-of-the-line watches, the Phoenix and the Epix. They're very similar, but they have one big difference, and that's the screen. And I go into an in-depth review of which screen is better.